As if to demonstrate this point, Utnapishtim challenges Gilgamesh to stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights. Gilgamesh falls asleep, and Utnapishtim instructs his wife to bake a loaf of bread on each of the days he is asleep, so that he cannot deny his failure to keep awake. Gilgamesh, who is seeking to overcome death, cannot even conquer sleep. After instructing Urshanabi, the ferryman, to wash Gilgamesh and clothe him in royal robes, they depart for Uruk. As they are leaving, Utnapishtim's wife asks her husband to offer a parting gift. Utnapishtim tells Gilgamesh that at the bottom of the sea there lives a box-stone-like a plant that will make him young again. Gilgamesh, by binding stones to his feet so he can walk on the bottom, manages to obtain the plant. Gilgamesh proposes to investigate if the plant has the hypothesized rejuvenation ability by testing it on an old man once he returns to Uruk. 48. When Gilgamesh stops to bathe, it is stolen by a serpent, who sheds their skin as they depart. Gilgamesh weeps at the futility of his efforts. Because he has now lost all chance of immortality. He returns to Uruk, where the sight of its massive walls prompts him to praise this enduring work to Urshanabi. Tablet 12. This tablet is mainly an Akkadian translation of an earlier Sumerian poem, Gilgamesh and the Netherworld, also known as Gilgamesh, Enkidu, and the Netherworld and variants, although it has been suggested that it is derived from an unknown version of that story. 49. The contents of this last tablet are inconsistent with previous ones. Enkidu is still alive, despite having died earlier in the epic. Because of this, its lack of integration with the other tablets, and the fact that it is almost a copy of an earlier version, it has been referred to as an inorganic appendage to the epic. 50. Alternatively, it has been suggested that its purpose, though crudely handled, is to explain to Gilgamesh, and the reader, the various fates of the dead in the afterlife, and in an awkward attempt to bring closure. 51. It both connects the Gilgamesh of the epic with the Gilgamesh who is the king of the Netherworld. 52. And is a dramatic capstone whereby the 12th tablet epic ends on one and the same theme, that of seeing equals understanding, discovery, etc., with which it began. 53. Gilgamesh complains to Enkidu that various of his possessions. The tablet is unclear exactly what different translations include a drum and a ball, have fallen into the underworld. Enkidu offers to bring them back. Delighted, Gilgamesh tells Enkidu what he must and must not do in the underworld if he is to return. Enkidu does everything which he was told not to do. The underworld keeps him. Gilgamesh prays to the gods to give him back his friend. Enlil and Suan do not reply, but Enki and Shamash decide to help. Shamash makes a crack in the earth, and Enkidu's ghost jumps out of it. The tablet ends with Gilgamesh questioning Enkidu about what he has seen in the underworld. Old Babylonian versions. This version of the epic, called in some fragments Surpassing All Other Kings, is composed of tablets and fragments from diverse origins and states of conservation. 54. It remains incomplete in its majority, with several tablets missing, and those found having sizable lacunae. They are named after their current location, or the place where they were found. Pennsylvania tablet. Surpassing All Other Kings tablet 2. Greatly correlates with tablets I2 of the standard Babylonian version. Gilgamesh tells his mother Ninsun about 2 dreams he had. His mother explains that they mean that a new companion will soon arrive at Uruk. In the meanwhile, the wild Enkidu and the priestess, here called Shamkatam, have sex. She tames him in company of the shepherds by offering him bread and beer. Enkidu helps the shepherds by guarding the sheep. They travel to Uruk to confront Gilgamesh and stop his abuses. Enkidu and Gilgamesh battle, but Gilgamesh breaks off the fight. Enkidu praises Gilgamesh. Yale tablet. surpassing all other kings. Tablet 3 partially matches tablets 2-3 of the standard Babylonian version. For reasons unknown, the tablet is partially broken. Enkidu is in a sad mood. In order to cheer him up, Gilgamesh suggests going to the pine forest to cut down trees and kill Humbaba, known here as Hawaii. Enkidu protests, as he knows Hawaii and is aware of his power. Gilgamesh talks Enkidu into it with some words of encouragement, but Enkidu remains reluctant. They prepare, and call for the elders. The elders also protest, but after Gilgamesh talks to them, they agree to let him go. After Gilgamesh asks his god, Shamash, for protection, and both he and Enkidu equip themselves, they leave with the elders' blessing and counsel. Philadelphia fragment. Possibly another version of the contents of the Yale tablet, practically irrecoverable. Nipper school tablet. In the journey to the cedar forest and Hawaii, Enkidu interprets one of Gilgamesh's dreams. Telharmal tablets. Fragments from two different versions / tablets tell how Enkidu interprets one of Gilgamesh's dreams on Fuayu to the forest of cedar, and their conversation when entering the forest. Ishkali tablet. After defeating Hawaii, Gilgamesh refrains from slaying him, and urges Enkidu to hunt Hawaii's 7 auras. Enkidu convinces him to smite their enemy. After killing Hawaii and the auras, they chop down part of the forest and discover the god's secret abode. The rest of the tablet is broken. The auras are not referred to in the standard Babylonian version, but are in one of the Sumerian poems as sons. Partial fragment in Baghdad. Partially overlapping the felling of the trees from the Ishkali tablet. Sipar tablet. Partially overlapping the standard Babylonian version tablets 9x. Gilgamesh mourns the death of Enkidu wandering in his quest for immortality. Gilgamesh argues with Shamash about the futility of his quest. After a lacuna, Gilgamesh talks to Siduri about his quest and his journey to meet Utnapishtim, here called Utanaishtim. Siduri attempts to dissuade Gilgamesh in his quest for immortality, urging him to be content with the simple pleasures of life. 5:55. After one more lacuna, Gilgamesh smashes the stone ones and talks to the ferryman Urshanabi, here called Sursunabu. After a short discussion, Sursunabu asks him to carve 300 oars so that they may cross the waters of death without needing the stone ones. The rest of tablet is missing. The text on the old Babylonian Meisner fragment, the larger surviving fragment of the Sipar tablet, has been used to reconstruct possible earlier forms of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it has been suggested that a prior form of the story earlier even than that preserved on the old Babylonian fragment may well have ended with Siduri sending Gilgamesh back to Iraq. And Utnapishtim was not originally part of Petal. 56. Sumerian poems. There are 5 extant Gilgamesh stories in the form of older poems in Sumerian. 57. These probably circulated independently, rather than being in the form of a unified epic. Some of the names of the main characters in these poems differ slightly from later Akkadian names. For example, Gilgamesh is written instead of Gilgamesh, and there are some differences in the underlying stories, such as the fact that Enkidu is Gilgamesh's servant in the Sumerian version, the Lord to the Living Ones Mountain and Hurrah, correspond to the Cedar Forest episode, standard Babylonian version tablets 2v. Gilgamesh and Enkidu travel with other men to the forest of cedar. There, trapped by Hawaii, Gilgamesh tricks him, with Enkidu's assistance in one of the versions, into giving up his auras, thus losing his power. Hero in battle corresponds to the Bull of Heaven episode, standard Babylonian version tablet 6, in the Akkadian version. The bull's voracious appetite causes drought and dirtship in the land while Gilgamesh feasts. Lugalgabagal convinces him to face the bull and attacks him alongside Enkidu. The Envoys of Arca has no corresponding episode in the epic, but the themes of whether to show mercy to captives, and counsel from the city elders, also occur in the standard Babylonian version of the Humbaba story. In the poem, Uruk faces a siege from Akish armilled by King Arca, whom Gilgamesh defeats and forgives. 58. In those far-off days, otherwise known as Gilgamesh, Enkidu, and the Netherworld, is the source for the Akkadian translation included as Tablet 12 in the standard Babylonian version, telling of Enkidu's journey to the Netherworld. It is also the main source of information for the Sumerian creation myth and the story of Inanna and the Hulapu tree. 59. The Great Wild Bull is Lying Down, a poem about Gilgamesh's death, burial and consecration as a semigod, reigning and giving judgment over the dead. After dreaming of how the gods decide his fate after death, Gilgamesh takes counsel, prepares his funeral and offers gifts to the gods. Once deceased, he is buried under the Euphrates, taken off its course and later returned to it. Translations. The first direct Arabic translation from the original tablets was published in the 1960s by Iraqi archaeologist Taha Bacha. 60. The definitive modern translation into English is a 2-volume critical work by Andrew George, publisher by Oxford University Press in 2003. A book review by Cambridge scholar Eleanor Robson claims that George's is the most significant critical work on Gilgamesh in the last 70 years. 61. George discusses the state of the surviving material, and provides a tablet-by-tablet exegesis, with a dual-language side-by-side translation. In 2004, Stephen Mitchell supplied a controversial version that takes many liberties with the text and includes modernized allusions and commentary relating to the Iraq War of 2003. 62. 63. In 2021, a translation by Cephas Hell was published by Yale University Press. 64. Later influence. Relationship to the Bible. Various themes, plot elements, and characters in the Hebrew Bible correlate with the Epic of Gilgamesh, notably the accounts of the Garden of Eden, the advice from Ecclesiastes, and the Genesis flood narrative. Garden of Eden. The parallels between the stories of Enkidu /Shamhat and Adam /Eve have been long recognized by scholars. 65, 66. In both, a human is created from the soil by a god and lives in nature. He is introduced to Afmal Kanjena, who tempts him. In both stories, the man accepts food from the woman, covers his nakedness, and must leave his former home, unable to return. The presence of a snake who steals a plant of immortality from the hero later in the epic is another point of similarity. However, a major difference between the two stories is that while Enkidu experiences regret regarding his seduction away from nature, this is only temporary. After being confronted by the god Shamash for being ungrateful, Enkidu recants and decides to give the woman who seduced him his final blessing before he dies. This is in contrast to Adam, whose fall from grace is largely portrayed as a punishment for disobeying the gods and the inevitable consequence of the loss of innocence regarding good and evil. Advice from Ecclesiastes. Several scholars suggest direct borrowing of Siduri's advice by the author of Ecclesiastes. 67. A rare proverb about the strength of a triple-stranded rope. A triple-stranded rope is not easily broken, is common to both books. Noah's flood. Andrew George submits that the Genesis flood narrative matches that in Gilgamesh so closely that few doubt that it derives from a Mesopotamian account. 68. What is particularly noticeable is the way the Genesis flood story follows the Gilgamesh flood tale point by point and in the same order, even when the history permits other alternatives. 69. In a 2001 Torah commentary released on behalf of the conservative movement of Judaism, rabbinic scholar Robert Wexler stated, the most likely assumption we can make is that both Genesis and Gilgamesh drew their material from a common tradition about the flood that existed in Mesopotamia. These stories then diverged in the retelling. 70. Ziusudra, Utnapishtim and Noah are their respective heroes of the Sumerian, Akkadian and biblical flood legends of the ancient Near East. Additional biblical parallels. Mabius hence suggests that Nebuchadnezzar's madness in the biblical book of Daniel draws on the epic of Gilgamesh.